Gentlemen, welcome once again to the student of the game. I am Kyle Nash, the student of the game. And listen, if you're here, chances are you like talking sport. And boy, do we have a lot of it to bring to you for this particular episode. Got to tell you, this one's a fun one. We do this twice a year with the superlatives, with the middle of season and end of season awards here on the student of the game. And whenever Mikey the Bernier is in, we're good for him for at least 3 times a football season to preview his Bengals, which, oh, good God, that poor guy. Poor all of us who picked the Bengals. Just a nice tall glass of damn it. But with all that in mind, the superlatives are coming in. We're going to do some picks with Mikey Byrne and just going to be a lot of quality, intelligent conversation. Probably the opposite of a few weeks back when EJ Christian was in the building. It's a joke. Relax, folks. No, listen. I know I'm making my rounds with the Huddle Up family here in the past month or so, whether it be EJ Christian, Jim Neese, Matt Muehlheisen, and of course here, Mikey the Burn stepping in here. I know his actual name's Bernier, but it's more fun to say the Burn. The Burn burneth. This is getting redundant. Anyway, speaking of redundancy, I know we've been speaking ad nauseum. You've probably heard it about the national championship. Boy, goodness, golly gracious, Michigan handled the business on defense. And listen, this is one of those where I did my best impression of an NFL coach with short yardage. I told you exactly why on the Huddle Up podcast. Even here, talking about it last week with Matt Muehlheisen on why Michigan had advantages and if they were going to win the game, precisely how the bleep they would do it. If this were the Earnestly Speaking podcast on the Student of the Game report, I would have dropped an F-bomb. Bing! Yeah, is that a censorship bing? Is that a bleep? I don't know. Anyways, I told you exactly how Michigan would win if they were going to win, and then I proceeded to pick Washington because I thought I suffered from too much bias of trench warfare. Now, ladies and gentlemen, here's the thing. The reason why I'm biased towards trench warfare is it's that beep important in the damn sport of football. Michigan came out with the offensive line, tore holes open in the fabric of space and time, and allowed their runners to transcend physics. Quantum realm-ish, all of that into the end zone to go up quickly 14-0. I will give credit up and down to Washington for at least making it competitive for a portion of the game. But then because the offensive line got the quantum realm involved, that's when it all happened that it became a blowout again somehow. I mean, but and I know I talk a lot about trench warfare and my mistake in picking Washington because I thought the receivers that are that good, which they are. Michael Penix is that good, which he is. I obviously underestimated Johnson at the running back position and how big that injury would affect them because they didn't have to worry about the run defensively, Michigan. But for all the trench warfare talk, Will Johnson, I'm just going to say it here, should be a first-day pick at cornerback. With as much as the NFL needs corners, and maybe I'm a little jaded on that front because I cover the Jacksonville Jaguars as often as I do for Jaguar Report and three-point conversion. Bing! That guy was the difference, in my opinion, in that game. Sure, the entire defensive secondary for Washington did the business, but I know, I tried to tell me, but I wouldn't listen. That's right. I'm smacking myself in the face with a blatant, blunt instrument, a.k.a. a morning star. Right the face. Okay? Now, granted, there are other people that are using their spouses as meat shields on other podcasts that didn't tell me anything. I don't even actually know what their first names are officially on the air. And if it weren't for Facebook, I wouldn't have a clue. I just have to call them Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so without giving away the identity of the person in question. But I know this. I told me how that game would go if Michigan won, and I just decided to doubt myself. I don't know. Maybe because I'm between jobs right now and my psyche's wrong. I don't know what it is. I question myself, and I shouldn't have. However, representing the Huddle Up family here today, possibly to beat on me, and rightly so, for how I mispicked the national championship, Bengal fan extraordinaire, host of the FKC Fantasy Podcast, and also the best named podcast amongst the Huddle Up Podcast family podcasts. My guy, Mike Bernier, the Burn, coming in. What's up, buddy? Throw them punches.
Hey, buddy. What's going on?
I'm Ron Burgundy.
I'm Ron Burgundy? Question mark.
So, man, listen, you heard my synopsis on how I participated in my element of defrauding myself out of picking the proper winner of the national championship. What would you add?
I would say the thought process was for Washington to win that game, they were going to have to score, and they're going to have to score a lot.
You need, in order to win a football game, you have to score more points than the other team.
Yes.
Thanks, John.
It's just one of those things where that defense in the Pac-12 really hasn't had to stop anyone, and they've been able to just kind of Swiss cheese the Pac-12 defenses with as good as Michael Penix Jr. and Rome Odunze and Johnson have been for Washington all year. The big thing here was the offensive line from Washington, I think, was used to less physicality from the front four. You saw Penix being pressured more in that game than I think he was almost in any other game that he had leading into it, including the semifinals against Texas. I mean, Texas got a lot of pressure on him, but I feel like Michigan got even more pressure on him. Mm-hmm. Kudos to Michigan for making the adjustments in the second half, because there was a real spot there coming out at halftime where if Washington doesn't throw that early pick on that first drive, if they go down and score on that drive, you're either tied or you're in a 4-point game if they kick a field goal. The turnover really felt like it was the straw that broke the camel's back, and Washington started playing too far from behind. But it's one of those things where when you look at this Michigan team, we're talking about a team that in a Big Ten conference game ran the ball 30 times in the second half and made 0 pass attempts. You know what Michigan was going to do. They were going to run the football. They were going to run the football effectively. It's been the MO all year. And in the biggest spotlight of them all, the run game is what inevitably won them the national title. The work of Edwards and of Blake Corum to find holes that weren't there when they started and being able to bounce it back and make adjustments with the football was really what got Michigan the win. I got into an argument leading into the semifinals against Alabama with someone. I told them that Blake Corum was the best running back out of the 4 teams, and they told me I was crazy. And my response to him was, I said, anytime that you can get me a 4'7" bowling ball that's hard to tackle and doesn't stop his legs moving, I'll take it any day of the week. So Michigan's run game has been their thing most of the year. J.J. McCarthy didn't have to do anything extra or spectacular a lot this year.
Nor has he in a lot of the games, which has completely boggled my mind on why he was a Heisman candidate, but continue.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. If I'm give me Corum, give me somebody else out of that offense if you have to have a Heisman finalist because they're undefeated. But at the end of the day, the run game has been their bread and butter all year. It worked for them. Kudos to them. I think now the exciting thing is what happens next with Michigan. We talked a little bit about it yesterday, with the odds for next year. I think they're like 4th right now because I think it's more questions than answers. What's JJ McCarthy going to do? What's Jim Harbaugh going to do? There's questions. So excited to see what happens. Excited that the college football playoffs, and this is directly affected to all the fans of the Florida State Criminals, as we call them so elegantly on the Huddle Up Incorporated. Bing! They got it right. And if you still don't think they got it right, please take a walk.
Oh yeah, I can't express that was proven out right here. I still see so many Nolers just unequivocally and unreasonably saying, "Well, where's the proof we didn't belong?" Are you out of your ever-loving cotton picking minds? Let me remind you, 16-9. You couldn't even score as many points combined to ACC in your championship game than Bama did over a Georgia defense. Why are we having this conversation? By the way, we're better than Texas. Here's what I know. Texas blew out their opponent, an overrated, albeit, Oklahoma State team. But an overrated Louisville team did so bad that defenders of the Noles keep trying to tell me Louisville wasn't overrated. They competed with the Seminoles. You know, that circular logic. ACC beat other ACC, therefore ACC is stronger. Whereas the SEC goes out, nearly puts the would-be national champion to an overtime game. You know, but at any rate, go ahead.
The fitting bow for 2023-2024 NCAA football season, as we talk about the ACC, they still had their hand involved in the national title with as bad as that officiating crew was at points in that football game.
Well, they didn't have anything better to do that night. Boom! That felt good. Continue, Mikey Byrne.
No, it's when you look at the ACC, down year throughout the conference, and anyone that wants to say that, you know,
was it though?
Okay, for their standards, when we're talking about,
for their standards, that changes
correct
everything.
For their standards, Clemson down,
and has been for some time, by the way.
This is the wake up call to the ACC that you had your run with Clemson being in the playoffs and winning the national title. You had a couple of teams that were decent, not great, but now you're basically the Big 12 of the Southeast.
With all due respect, I resent that. The Big 12 has a couple teams that might play a little defense. Anyways,
they also lost two of the best Big 12 teams to the SEC.
Well, right. So, and I'll put it this way: I think Oklahoma's trending down.
Correct.
Moreover, Dylan Gabriel was overrated as hell, as I tried to tell you, but you wouldn't listen. And he's also transferred. By the way, he's going to get you some yards. He will not win big games. I think we saw that again. By the way, damn near lost to UCF, but nobody wants to talk about that. You know, just like the Noles barely beat former UCF quarterback who was coming in as a backup, Tommy Castellanos, with BC 30-29. But all I keep hearing about is the Auburn game nearly being a loss by Bama in a rivalry game where crazy things have a history of happening. But nobody wants to talk about that. Anyways, you say there this might be a warning for the ACC. Buddy, that canary fell in that damn cage some time ago. And here's the one thing where I have and will continue to give Nolers credit. They were trying to get out of this conference at the beginning of this season.
Mm-hmm.
They've seen the writing on the wall. I can only imagine it more infuriates those there in Tallahassee that they had seen it coming. They were in a position for and listen, I feel for Mike Norvell. That dude has been screwed around with in so many conference championship situations, and I had a front row seat to two of them in the American Athletic Conference when he had big leads on UCF. What happened was Mackenzie Milton / DJ Mack, all that. But see, I'm throwing down all my UCF knowledge. My Black and Gold Banneret people would be happy. Bing! But I come back to this, and this is the thing I wanted to question in your analysis. You were breaking down, well, Penix did this wrong, and the Washington offensive line was this, and that interception was everything, buddy. And I appreciate nothing in your analysis incorrect. I just think you're leaning too much on negative analysis. Can we give a winning team some expletive deleted credit for just being great?
Oh, absolutely. And
I'm not saying this is a Mikey the Burn problem. This is an overall analysis problem that goes up and around and over the Huddle Up podcast family that I'm trying to take a kind of a personal crusade to kind of get away from, myself included. There's just not enough propping of good out there. Now, you want to be the Jags and lose to a garbage team like the Titans and blow your dumbasses out of the playoffs? Live in the negative, because that's all that ish is. Hashtag bitter party of one. But when something great as CJ Stroud happens, don't go bitching the Colts didn't win. When something as awesome as that Michigan defense And not just up front, right? You mentioned that interception by Penix in the red zone. A safety made a fantastic read on a crossing route. That was a dinner secondary play. Dinner as in it was late in the play, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just like everyone wants to tell me that Malcolm Butler has made more than one great play in his career where he got lucked into an interception opportunity in the Super Bowl. Okay? No, if you're going to give him credit for having good eyes in that Super Bowl, a college kid should be get credit for having good eyes in a play that wasn't necessarily a bad play call, by the way, for making a read like that in a college national championship.
No, absolutely. I think a lot of, and this is going to be the attack on mainstream media.
Lamestream, sir.
Sorry. Lamestream media. A lot of people want to pick the negatives for multiple reasons. Test out the kids' willpower. Test out are they going to break under pressure? A lot of people like, is Michael Penix now an NFL-worthy quarterback because he had a down game? How does one game be the reason why we're out on Michael Penix? If you would have looked at me and told me, hey, Michael Penix may not be a day one draft pick because of 2 ACL surgeries, because of 2 shoulder injuries, sure. But to say it's because he threw 3 interceptions in a national title game that they were down by however many points and had to press to try to get the ball into tighter windows because of how good the Michigan secondary was on that.
Because he was forced into a one-dimensional offense because Johnson was hurt, right? He didn't sit out a game like 20 starters did for the Seminoles against Georgia.
Correct. And that's where I look at it. And a lot of people also, they don't want to give credit to the college football quote devil because he was suspended and people think that Michigan
should devil. Sorry.
Yeah. They don't think Michigan should have even been allowed to play in it and sanctions and this, that, or the other. Well, guess what? Whether Jim knew about it, whether Jim was involved in it or not, to me is irrelevant because here's the thing. Blake Corum was not involved in it. JJ McCarthy wasn't involved in it. The secondary that played that game on Monday night in Houston wasn't involved in any of the decision making in that process. Those kids went out and won 15 football games and have every right to hold that trophy high and be the national champions and get the praise that they deserve. Because at the end of the day, they did the job and they finished what they needed to finish throughout all of the headaches, throughout all of the turmoil. They didn't have their coach against Ohio State prove him wrong. At the end of the day, this Michigan team did their job. Give the kids
the mighty Penn State. Remember, we're supposed to quiver in our boots about them, even though the only offense they have is something that doesn't have a lot of offense. Like, what do we do?
It's offensive that we're sitting here talking about their offense.
Wah, wah.
But again, anyone that doesn't want to give Michigan their credit is grasping at straws for a different reason. These kids.
That being said, a Notre Dame fan taking an entire segment of his show looking like the next coming of Rich Eisen in propping up Michigan and then tries to claim I'm not a Michigan fan.
Marge.
I'm not going to mention any names, but the Simpsons family was present on Huddle Up very clearly on Tuesday night.
And the last thing I want to mention, you mentioned Florida State wanting out of the ACC.
I did.
If they get out of the ACC in this
win,
I'm going to say if.
Okay.
Because here's my thought process.
So be it.
A, where do they go? And B, if it's the SEC, welcome to the level of Tennessee where you're going to get smoked by every team. So do you almost want to be the best of tier 2 or do you want to be like middle of the road of tier 1? Because at the end of the day, if you put that FSU team prior to the injury, prior to all the sit-outs of the Georgia game, I think they're a middle-of-the-road SEC team.
That's interesting. They certainly might hit injury stops sooner. Like, I'll give FSU this much credit. I saw them personally in the Kickoff Classic in week 1, and I thought they had the capacity to make the playoff. And I don't think you're disagreeing there. And
Nope.
to your point, there are mid-level air quotes or less than. I mean, the SEC is top heavy. I don't think there's any debate with that. And if you're top heavy and you have 4 schools at the top or 3 schools at the top, somebody's sitting the bleep out. Now, who in that family ends up sitting out is a question. See what I did there? Because it is typically LSU. But because the money's better, I know what the administration wants. Right?
Correct.
And the same question was posed of UCF. Do you want to be, just as an example, do you want to be a top G5 school and run the American, air quotes, run the American, or do you want to go and compete at a mid-level in a Power 5 conference? Well, UCF chose the latter, did just that, but is still continuing to build. Excuse me. And that's what I think. I think FSU has plateaued in the space they're at. And the only way they can build is to go to a different conference. Now, it won't be the SEC, in my opinion, because Florida ain't having that.
No.
And I don't think FSU will lower itself, air quotes, to be in the Big 12 along with UCF. That would be goddamn fascinating, which would then leave the Big 10 being somebody who could get a leg into Florida, not only for that TV money, but for the recruiting. Very fascinating stuff. I'll leave all of that at that. But yeah, so no, these are good questions you pose. I know you and I could go into the weeds, but we're already 20 plus minutes into college football, and that's not even the primary damn topic of the show here tonight, guys. This is this week's NFL superlatives. If I weren't lazy and pre-recording this, I would have a trumpet herald and all that stuff, but I don't. So with all that in mind, let's jump in and get into this year's superlatives, the 2023 regular season awards for the NFL, according to the Student of the Game podcast. Now, Mikey Byrne, I'm going to be jumping around a bit because some of these are obvious and some of these are not. But for my money, let's go ahead and get the obvious 2 out of the way first, starting with comeback player of the year. If you don't have Damar Hamlin, you're doing it wrong and you're a heartless bastard. The dude literally died in front of your eyes and came back to life to not just get significant snaps, but be a major contributor to a Bills team that had a lot of injuries on it throughout the year in the secondary. So let's move on from Damar Hamlin because that's obviously the choice you had, right, Mikey Byrne?
Oh,
son of a bitch! Okay, go ahead, buddy.
38 years old, sitting on a couch, taking the team to the number 1 wild card after that team was left for dead when Deshaun Watson went out with an injury.
Sure.
I will give all the credit in the world to Damar Hamlin. If Joe Flacco did not come back and do what he did, I feel like this would be a runaway. This is a lot closer from a Vegas odds perspective than it was 8 weeks ago. But what Joe Flacco's done for that team has been earth-shattering. It's proven that because they were left for dead when Watson went out. DRT did not look good.
See, you'd already done effed up. What words did you just use?
Ooh, yeah, I did screw up on that one. That was on me. Yep, that one's on me.
Like that's like you already leaned into having a take so bad that EJ Christian agrees with you. Then you went and did that. Anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I also
I was feeling like the Dan Le Batard show today.
I almost contemplated saying Baker Mayfield.
Well, and so listen, if Damar Hamlin wasn't a thing, this would be the conversation. I think I broached this topic on the Student of the Game Report with the Earnestly Speaking podcast. Bing! If Damar Hamlin wasn't a factor, the conversation would be between Flacco and Baker Mayfield in my mind. And I too would pick Joe Flacco. To your point, he was sitting in his house on the couch at age 38 and got the call to come back. Whereas Damar Hamlin was sitting on the couch at the Grim Reaper's house and managed to come back. But that's okay. You know, we could just completely diss a man coming back from literal death. But that's cool.
Honestly, I like I said, I give him all the praise, all the credit in the
I give
world.
him all the praise, but he can't be the comeback player of the year, apparently.
Honestly, he's probably going to win it. I'm not even going to sit here and lie.
Rightly so. Hit
Absolutely. Absolutely. Again, I'm okay with it. If I'm wrong on this one, I am more than okay with it. But when you take the low-hanging fruit, I should at least give some credit to the guy who's going
low-hanging fruit. Come on, buddy. Like, what?
You're saying he's going to run away with it. It is the low-hanging fruit. It's like saying that CJ Stroud isn't the offensive rookie of the year.
Oh, spoilers, bitch.
Sorry, we'll get there in a minute. At the end of the day, honestly, probably DeMar Hamlin is going to win it. It's probably as locked as me being overweight. I mean, let's be real here.
Whoa.
Lock it up.
Whoa. That's our word.
At the end of the day, I'm going to give Joe Flacco some love. DeMar Hamlin probably wins the award, but if he's not back playing professional football at a high level, I do think that this is Joe Flacco versus Baker Mayfield.
Oh, 1,000,000,000%. And for my money, if it's between Baker Mayfield and Joe Flacco, it's Flacco all day, because sure, he came in late in the season and was like quarterback 57 or 4 to take the field. And yes, he does have the advantage of a pretty good skill player set on offense. But the top runner gone. There was a number of injuries on offense. Defense, okay, the defense, listen, that defense, you know what this reminds me of, Mikey Byrne? This Browns defense is the Denver Bronco defense in the Tim Tebow year. I would have said era, but
I thought you were going to say that this reminds you of the Trent Dilfer Baltimore Ravens defense, where it's like, just don't turn the ball over and let's score. Like,
just a bit too trite. This defense isn't that good.
Okay.
But also finding an excuse to mention the Ravens again with Joe Flacco just felt a little on the nose as well. I mean, I don't blame you. I just didn't want to be that corny. This isn't the EJ Christian show. Anyways.
We talked about Joe Flacco, me and Ryan, who does the FKC Fantasy Hour with me. The game against Houston, it literally looked like he was playing like 5,000 in the backyard. He just kind of scrambled and just like threw it from his like hip and just like chucked it in the air. I was like, 5,000. Somebody catch this and you win and you get to play quarterback next. Literally.
With Bolden and Jimmy, was it Jimmy Smith? I forget the name of the receiver. Mark? No. Oh God, that's going to plague me tonight. The Ravens receivers that Flacco had, other than Jacoby Jones and Anquan Bolden, the third guy, the long ball guy, that's killing me, because I loved him when he was a player with the Ravens too. I'll whatever. But the point is, that guy, whoever it is, had that same style of receiver core where all you had to do was protect Flacco and he would let it rip. And he had an excellent postseason that few have duplicated since, that aren't named Thomas Edward Patrick Beaver Brady or Patrick LeVon Mahomes II, or even Peyton Williams Manning for that matter. Not that he had a great postseason when he was the Broncos quarterback. That was mostly the defense, but details. There's a good comparison. And I would even argue that Joe Flacco's arm looks better than Manning's did in that Super Bowl. So, hey, there you go. And they wore orange, just like Cleveland does. Anyway.
You're wrong.
So, yeah, clearly DeMar and Hamlin, the right answer, unless you're a heartless bastard. By the way, what's it like to get dunked on as if you were EJ Christian there, Mikey Byrne?
I would suggest that we don't compare me to someone who doesn't do research, because at least I made logical sense.
Right, but I mean, you made a take that bag, and I dunked on you repeatedly. That's the part I'm.
Oh, that's fine, because here's the thing: we take it and we move forward. I'm on to Jacksonville.
Well, no, Jacksonville is not there yet.
Neither is Cincinnati, but I'm saying I'm on to Jacksonville because I'm worried about whoever's in front of me.
They were out for a while ago, allegedly. No, listen, and actually, it's funny. You mentioned the Bengals in Jacksonville. It's an opportunity for me to plug my top 5 best and worst moments of the Jaguar season on the Jaguar Report. Bing! That Monday night game made the list. You can see where in the top 5 it did, as well as the other moments that I picked out. So check that out on the Jaguar.
So, I think you were right about Torrey Smith, because I think it was
Torrey Smith. Thank you. I said Jimmy Smith. I'm like, no, that's corner.
Yep. And Jimmy Smith was also the wide receiver in Jacksonville for a while, right?
Oh yeah, no, it's listen, that don't get me started on him. He was one of the first articles I ever wrote as the student of the game. And just that anyways, that whole situation. There should be talks about him in Canton, but that's never gonna happen because he played in Jacksonville. Anyways, I digress. Speaking of obvious awards, offensive rookie in the year. The answer who's your offensive rookie of the year and why is it CJ Stroud, Mikey?
Because he's really good.
He's good at the football.
Yeah, he's really good at the football stuff. They win the division. I know he missed a couple games with a concussion, and you saw how bad that team looked without him. The reality of the situation is he's
won the game, by the way. Let the record show that.
Correct.
So
he's turned the culture around in Houston. They were kind of spinning, it felt like, out of control at points with insert random quarterback name here. It's kind of what it felt like.
Random minority coach hire here.
Correct. So it's one of those things when you're looking at what he's been able to do for that team. Obviously, I'm not going to spoil something else that I'm going to talk about here in a second, but the Houston team in itself has come around, and I think the leading catalyst for the change not only is DeMeco Ryans, it's CJ Stroud. He's got himself an NFL quarterback, and CJ, it looks
franchise quarterback. I made a statement on the Duval Dive podcast, Mikey Byrne, with my friend Travis Holmes, bing, that you're going to be seeing CJ Stroud for at least 10 more games, meaning the next 5 years. I'm allowing for the possibility of catastrophe to take place, but I'm willing to bet it's longer than that. There's at this point, based on what we've seen, there is no way anybody thinks he's not getting a second NFL contract as a starter, right?
Oh, absolutely. He absolutely is going to. And he was as good as he was. He lost Tank Dell.
Yes.
Didn't have our good friend Nico Suave for a couple games.
Got banged up, right?
So I mean they went through some injury bugs, and the thing is he doesn't have that star-studded wide receiver. He doesn't have a Jamar Chase. He doesn't have.
Imagine if he had DeAndre expletive deleted Hopkins.
I mean, let's talk about this, and it's gonna hurt my feelings. T. Higgins is a free agent.
Oh God.
Put him in Houston with CJ and Nico Collins. Good luck.
What had happened was. Anyways. Defensive rookie of the year, Mikey Byrne, who you got?
This is where I said I didn't want to spoil it just yet, because the fancy pick is Jalen Carter, but he is not my selection. I'm staying in Houston. Mm-hmm. Give me the guy that they took in the same round that they took CJ Stroud. Give me Will Anderson Jr.
You're damn right. I got the same thing.
Yeah, that dude's an animal. That guy is a machine. He is all over the place. He makes tackles that people are like, how is this guy cutting back as a defensive lineman? DN just tackling running backs that are cutting the other direction at 15 and 20 miles an hour. He doesn't miss tackles. He gets pressure on the quarterback. And the thing is he fits the DeMeco Ryans defensive thought process to a T.
Right.
And he's flourished under DeMeco Ryans, and I think it's just going to continue because DeMeco is a defensive
coach,
a defensive player, and a defensive coach. I think he's just going to help Will with the technique to keep getting better and better. I love it. I love the fact that they were able to hit on both of their first-round draft picks.
I said it in the preseason in August. If you graded the Texans draft, they have an A just on the basis of the first round alone, and then somewhere in there you threw Tank Dell and a few others and then Humpy Bumpy. That was the key. And the coach, like, listen, it's not just any one thing. CJ Stroud hitting is awesome. Will Anderson, of course, is amazing. Getting Ryans right. Now we're up to 3 major things. And oh, by the way, Tank Dell and others. You managed to re-sign oh my gosh, Laramie Tunsil to protect him when he's healthy. All the things that the Texans did right in the offseason, where other franchises like the Jacksonville Jaguars made less competent draft picks. and things like that is the absolute difference maker. The only thing the Jags did that's even close to being on par with anything the Texans did in the offseason was drafting Anton Harrison. That dude had among the list of tough assignments all year. I considered him for offensive rookie of the year, but I would have been called out for being a man who was stuck in the trenches, and then also CJ Stroud happened. So Puka Nacua certainly would have been a consideration. He's also considered for another reward on list that I didn't give to him, but that is what it is. Yeah, CJ Stroud and Will Anderson for your rookies of the year. I ain't even mad at it. Well, I'll go to this award next because if anybody watched our midseason awards, what we're going to pick as our MVPs, you especially, will be obvious as hell. MVP, Mikey Byrne, who you got? And you can't say Trent Williams.
That's what I said. That's what I said in the regular season, and then
honestly, if you do pick Trent Williams, I'll allow it. I'm just making a joke.
Yeah, and then I went obviously with Christian McCaffrey here at the midseason award. I've thought about it and I've gone back and forth on this because it really feels like Lamar Demetrius Jackson is the correct pick.
Oh, he's the second. He's number 2 on the list. No question.
That's what I'm saying. He sounds like the correct pick, but he's not the pick I'm going to make. I am going to stick with my guns.
And he didn't do it for 18 weeks, Lamar Demetrius Jackson, like Christian McCaffrey did.
Correct. I'm staying with my guns.
Technically, McCaffrey didn't do it for 18 weeks. I think he got hurt a little bit too, but you know what I mean.
Yes. I'm going to stay with my guns. My pick is going to be Christian McCaffrey. The guy, a lot of people were concerned about him. He hasn't played in a full season since 2019.
And rightly so.
Played 16 games this year.
Ernest Christian's throwing curses left and right, just to say.
Minnesota Vikings playoff chances.
Don't bring up Trent Williams and the Packers.
And the Dolphins winning the AFC East.
All the kisses of death. How about your number 1 seeded Saints?
Yeah. So I look at it from this standpoint. He had 21 total touchdowns, led the league in rushing, with 1459, added another 564, over 2,000 total yards from scrimmage, 21 total touchdowns. And I think what put a bow on it for me was the night they lost when Brock threw 3,734 interceptions against Baltimore. And McCaffrey was still finding ways to try to keep them in the ball game at points.
Yeah, part of that was his concussion too. I'm convinced.
I would probably agree with you.
He would be the first quarterback who took a hard head hit, wasn't taken off the field. Check the third quarter for Trevor Lawrence on that Sunday night game. You'll see some whoa throws.
Can we just go back to Paycor Stadium last year? When Tua Tagovailoa should have never been allowed to play in that football game because of the concussion he had the week before. Oh. And all of a sudden we see him throwing up gang signs at the 50-yard line because literally. So, I mean, at the end of the day, we've seen quarterbacks play through concussions. Most of the time it doesn't end well for everybody involved, the player, the team, their teammates, etc. But at the end of the day, Christian McCaffrey still found a way till late in that game to keep them competitive. When everything was stacked against him. Right. I get it. Lamar Jackson's had a great year. Absolutely. Vegas is probably going to get it right, and he's probably going to be given the award because
you keep saying Vegas as if it's a gambling thing. Listen, the lame stream isn't going to be smart enough to pick Christian McCaffrey.
No, of course not.
Yeah. Oh, he's not a quarterback. I can't pick him.
I almost feel like we should just rename the MVP award to the most valuable quarterback award because at the end of the day,
first and you won't be the last to say it. I'll leave it at that.
So I mean, at this point, Lamar's had a fantastic year.
No question. By the way, in a year, with all due respect, my Bengals fan and brethren in the room, the guy who was most freaking out or had people freaked out over him getting hurt is the one humpy bumpy in this mess. In that division, who stayed healthy
1,000%. And the thing is, and I've gone back and forth with people who are Lamar Jackson super fans and Ravens fans and supporters and things like that. I said it before the year started. My concern was not the fact that I felt that he was, quote, a running back. My concern is the fact that his running has caused him to miss some opportunities while throwing the football and putting himself in danger of getting hurt.
Well, now that you've seen this year's events and certain players getting hurt and other players rising to prominence, would you say that you second guessing that is now likely? See, I made a tight end joke there, huh?
Hold on, you made a better joke. You want to know why? Guess where Isaiah Likely went to school?
You'll finish it.
Coastal Carolina, baby. So it works. It works full story. Hey, man,
listen, I did think of you when Grayson McCall was flirting with transferring to UCF. If I was covering him, you'd have lost your bleep. I'm sure.
Again,
no, I can't ask for an autograph, Mikey Byrne. I'm working here. Damn it.
I like I said, I like what Lamar's done this year. Sure. Again, I hate that it happened against us. I hate that I got to watch it unfold twice. But as a
Greg Browning for being an excellent fill-in, by the way.
Absolutely. But again, as a football fan, the concern I had with Lamar Demetrius Jackson was nothing more than him running for his life behind a mediocre offensive line and having to keep plays alive with his legs was putting him in danger while trying to get decent wide receivers to try to get open. Now he has weapons that he can get the ball out of his hand faster.
Old Bones is doing things he hasn't done since he was a Ram. Of course, I refer to Odell Beckham Jr., who you called Old Bones.
Old Bones Jr., baby.
And then Zay Flowers has been a hell of a pick, in part with the Lamar Demetrius Jackson, sure, but he's been panning out nicely.
And the thing is they lost Mark Andrews, and Isaiah Likely has stepped up huge. I mean, it works.
You bringing him up in this conversation, I thought that was pretty likely.
Yeah. So again, like I said, Lamar. My concern going into the year, he's proven that given the weapons, he doesn't have to run as much. His running numbers are down this year. So it works.
What happens when you get somebody who's an offensive coordinator that isn't, obsolete, right? I think.
You get him a decent offensive line, you get him a couple of targets that actually make sense in the receiving game, and you get an offensive coordinator whose offensive play call isn't, hey, run, and if something gets open, then throw it. like it really felt like the offensive coordinators in Baltimore were turning Lamar Jackson into a running back. Not that I felt like Lamar Jackson was a running back. They were just like, if Rashad Bateman, who plays 3 games a year, doesn't get open, just tuck it and run. You're fast enough. It's like, give me a weapon that actually makes sense and let me stand in the pocket and throw the football, and I can play 16 to 18 games for you in the regular season and not miss the last 5 games of each of the last regular seasons and potentially harm any shot of making a deep playoff run.
Fair enough. Offensive player of the year, Mikey Byrne.
It's hard whenever you make Christian McCaffrey your MVP to not make him your offensive player of the year, but I'm not going to make him my offensive player of the year. I'm going to do something a little different here. Obviously, Tyreek Hill had a great year. I'm not going to take anything away from Tyreek Hill.
Oh, boy, this is going to be awkward when I say Tyreek Hill and dunk on you again, but go ahead.
But this guy only had 50 less receiving yards than Tyreek Hill. He had 12 total touchdowns, and they are the 2 seed in the NFC. Give me wide receiver number 1 of the Dallas Cowboys. I'm going to take CeeDee Lamb.
I'm not mad at it. Certainly a better MVP candidate than Dak Prescott. Whoa! 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 Did I just rain on your parade, lamestream media? Oh, no! Ashley Baker of the Sports After Dark show is going to lose her mind when she hears this stuff. No, that's a fine pick. That's a fine pick, especially when one considers how the Dolphins basically, went right in the toilet there. CeeDee Lamb's an excellent pick. I'm not mad at it. I'm going to stick with Tyreek Hill, considering of the fact that everyone knew he was coming. Everyone around him was better because of Tyreek. I know those are more MVP kind of conversations, but when the difference is 50 yards, you start getting into that tiebreaker stuff right there. And the Dolphins had no defense. So the reliance on him to score, he could not have an off game. And when he does, you know what happens? He lost to the Titans. Oh boy, that sounds familiar. Anyways, so.
It's fascinating if you compare the two of them.
Oh, absolutely.
CeeDee Lamb 135 catches on 180 targets for 1749. Tyreek 119 on 171 targets, almost 1,800 yards. He was a yard short of that. 13 touchdowns for Tyreek, 12 for CeeDee Lamb. The two of them comparison, side by side, I get it. Tyreek played one less game than CeeDee Lamb, but I know Dallas.
No, you shouldn't dismiss that. That's another.
But I do know that Dallas pulled their starters halfway through, so it's like he really only played half a game less because.
Hey, listen, that's 30 extra minutes that where.
Oh, absolutely. And here's the thing. Honestly, I have no qualms or issues if it's Tyreek Hill. But I just felt that a lot of people coming into the year, Tyreek's coming. And then there were a lot of people that go, is CeeDee Lamb really a number one wide receiver?
Well, those people are idiots, though.
Correct. That's what I'm getting at. Lamestream media going, okay,
so you're giving CeeDee Lamb a few extra points because it gave you the opportunity to dunk on people. See, I'm not angry at that, Mikey. It gave Mikey a better opportunity to burn some people. No, I'm good with it. That's not a bad pick. Especially since he wasn't even on the radar in the middle of the season. Now he's here doing stuff. Defensive Player of the Year, Mikey Byrne.
Unfortunately, this man is not going to play in a playoff game because of an injury.
Okay, continue.
I'm going to go with the NFL league leader in sacks and the heart of the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. I'm going to take TJ Watt.
Yeah.
I think at points in that season, single-handedly willed that defense to stops and kept them in games. Honestly, the Cincinnati game on Saturday night when Mason Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer, found a Christmas miracle and kept their playoff chances alive and kind of killed ours. It was because the defense kept getting pressure on Jake Browning, and it was really led by TJ Watt. It's unfortunate that TJ is going to miss the playoff game against Buffalo. It's probably going to be one of the main reasons why that line that was sitting at 10 yesterday is probably going to go even further up at some point.
The other being the holiday miracle that is Mason Rudolph. Yeah,
correct. But when you take away the best player of the team because of injury in TJ Watt, he is the best player in Pittsburgh. I don't think that that's a debate. And if you want to have that debate, we can do that some other time. He's definitely the best player on that defense. I'm going to give him the award. There are a couple other names that I had floating around that I wouldn't have been upset with. I know I mentioned Deron Bland in the middle of the season awards with the 9 interceptions, leading the league in there.
Yes, that pick certainly wasn't bland.
Yep. Yep. And he turned some like 6 of them into touchdowns.
Yeah.
It was the thing where it's like, it's not just the interception. It's the interceptions that are directly leading to points.
Right. It's the whole thing where Trayvon Diggs, when healthy, is dangerous for the Cowboys.
Correct. So I like what Bland did, but I just think TJ Watt, because a lot of the time when Kenny Pickett went down, a lot of Steeler fans were like, all right, let's see what we have. And then it was whoever they had after Kenny Pickett just kind of, oh boy.
That would be Mitchell Trubisky.
Hold on. We have breaking news. There has been a coaching termination in the National Football League. I don't know if it was termination or they came mutually. Pete Carroll out in Seattle.
Wow. That okay, that's surprising. Wow.
I just Underdog just sent me the notification. Adam Schefter said a shocker in Seattle. Pete Carroll expected to be out as Seahawks head coach per sources. He could remain in the organization, but will not be the head coach in 2024.
I wonder if that's a health issue.
It's really weird that like 2 days ago he was like, I'm not tired. I'm not this. I'm ready to go. And then it's like,
what had happened was his wife got to him. Pete, you better stop. Yeah.
He pulled the Giselle. It's me or football.
God, I hope it's not that bad. And at Pete's age, like, listen, he ain't be trying to chase around in the clubs and get drunk on watermelon vodka. Okay. Like,
right.
I get it.
Yeah, so sorry that we derailed the defensive player.
No, that's a big one. Listen, it might be if it is due to his health, it might be the best opportunity for him to do some proper time management for once. Oh, too soon. Anyways, no, listen, that is a shocker. I'm wondering if that will play into anything with Harbaugh conversations. How ironic. After beating Washington for the national championship, he's going to go to the place where everybody dyes their damn hair purple. No, Bern, I've seen it. It's crazy.
You're not wrong. I've been to Seattle multiple times.
Okay, you know what I'm talking about. And I would go, woof, but then people would think I'm cheering for the Huskies. No, listen. A lot of people made that mistake on Twitter. I almost said to my good friend Antoine Staley, who writes for the New York Daily News, as the Jets beat writer, the poor guy. That's why I didn't want to make fun of him. He has enough to deal with. But the joke would be funnier than anything Jimmy Kimmel came up with in response. Anyways, I was going to say to him, don't say woof in this situation. It sounds like you're cheering for the Huskies.
Pretty much.
He's like, Michael Penix's interception. Woof. No. You got it back.
You want to say woof.
Yes. No, but I think, yeah, that Carroll thing's crazy. I'm certain we'll be talking about that on a number of stuff as it starts to disseminate in the coming week there. Yeah, we'll leave this at that. By the way, you've exposed to everybody this is a pre-record, and I'm okay with it. But, yeah, so coming back to it, I'm mad at CeeDee Lamb as your offensive player of the year. TJ Watt's the correct answer for defensive player of the year. I had Josh Allen written down at one point, and then I'm like, nah, he's the heart and soul, because at day's end, while Josh Allen in Jacksonville did break the single season franchise record in sacks, replacing Calais Campbell and what he got in 2017. I wrote an article about it on the Jaguar Report. Bing! Regardless of all that, there were other contributors there. You know, Foye Oluokun is probably the most underrated player at linebacker in the league, and thankfully he's an alternate on the Pro Bowl. Andre Sisco had a fantastic year at safety up until the very end, where he kind of slid off a little bit with injury.
Yeah, I was going to say that was probably driven because of the injury.
Right. And then Trayvon Walker, for everybody taking giant diarrhea dumps on him because he was the number one overall pick, still managed to get double-digit sacks on the year, but nobody wants to talk about that. Or if they do, they're people like my co-host on the Duval Dive, Travis Holmes, just want to be as negative as they possibly can about it. Well, Josh Allen's on the other side, whatever. Osi Umenyiora made a career of getting a lot of sacks with talented dudes on the other side, and he gets off with it scot-free. I'm just saying.
We're talking about Trey Hendrickson having a great year. Let's not forget Sam Hubbard's on the other side of that defense, causing just as much pressure, if not more. I mean, just because there's two great DNs doesn't take away from the fact that the guy on the other side also had a great year.
I asked you who was on the other side of Nick or Joey Bosa. Could you tell me? That tells me everything I need to know.
I was going to say Carlos Dunlap because I felt like the Bengals traded him to one of those to one of those teams, but I didn't sound right. And I'll say the other side of Joey Bosa was Khalil Mack, who was
Mack is the correct answer. Yes.
I don't know who's on the other side of
him making the defensive Pro Bowl. To me, was an absolute travesty, but that's a whole other question.
Khalil Mack?
What's that?
You're saying Khalil Mack making it was a travesty?
Yes, as a starter over Josh Allen, I mean.
Oh, correct. I was going to say, I think he should be there because he was like in the top, whatever, in sacks. And, you know, he did have a good year. But all in all, and we'll get there in a minute, the Chargers were the Chargers.
I see what you did there, you fortune-telling some bitch. With that in mind, let's see. Defensive player of the year is done. We did all that. Let's get to, we'll hold off coach of the year till the end. Biggest surprise, Mikey Byrne.
Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Interesting. Fair, but interesting. Yeah.
Here's my reasoning.
Hear me out.
A lot of people, including friend of the show, someone you record with, sat here and told us
doesn't narrow it down at all.
The Saints were going to be the 1 seed in the NFC.
Okay, no one said that. Oh, wait. Not on this show, anyways.
Somebody said it. He's been on your show before.
Actually, technically, it was on this show because it was a simulcast. Yeah, it's EJ Christian. Anyway.
Yeah. Logically here. At the end of the day, I get it. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, great wide receiving options. Rashad White played well.
Yeah.
But you had question marks on defense and you had question marks at the quarterback position. And a lot of people, when the Tampa Bay Buccaneers signed Baker Mayfield, it was, man, do they really think they're going to get what he did in LA the last couple games of the regular season for a full season in Tampa Bay? Now, yes, there have been some very ugly games in the Baker Mayfield era of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm looking at you 9-0 against Carolina last week to win the division. In a division where it didn't seem like anybody wanted it at points. It was more like, I don't want it, you take it. I don't want it, you take it. The only team that was smart enough to not want it was the Carolina Panthers because they decided not to show up. I mean, we had a legitimate conversation that Desmond Ritter / Taylor Heineke could have been a starting home playoff quarterback up until the last 2 or 3 weeks of the regular season.
Yeah.
But I'll say this. I'm going to take Tampa Bay here because all I heard all year, and I was one of them. I'm not going to sit here and hide behind the shield and be the guy who isn't sitting here. I thought the New Orleans Saints were going to be better. I thought Derek Carr with Chris Olave and Michael Thomas, and I know Alvin Kamara missed the first couple games of the regular season, but once he came back, all I heard was how great Williams was because of all the rushing touchdowns he had in Detroit last year. It almost took Arthur Smith punching Dennis Allen in the face for him to get 1 touchdown this year. So I give Tampa, and I was someone that I thought New Orleans was going to run away with this division.
Yeah.
But not because of I didn't think Baker Mayfield was good. There's a lot of people that are on the anti-Baker Mayfield wagon because of how it ended in Cleveland or how it ended in Carolina.
Like, listen, Baker Mayfield in certain situations, there's a strong argument to be made that he's not the most likable guy. I get that part.
Oh, correct. Character-wise, not my first choice. But what I will say here is, in the situation, they got the guy who made the most sense for them with the pieces they have to get them in a spot to potentially play for a playoff.
That's a really long, ingratiating, sugar-coated way of saying, so they got a guy who's not Kyle Trask. Okay? Can we be clear about that?
Kyle Trash.
I mean, so you said before, right? I couldn't go that route because the NFC South was still the NFC South and generally bad. The Bucks just weren't as bad as I thought. They won 2 more games than I predicted them to. Or sorry, is it 3? No, it's 3. Yeah, they won 3 more games than I predicted them to. They did their part. Baker Mayfield did better than I thought he'd do. I just sure. The 9-0 game says everything about it that just makes me unable to give this team any credit like that. And really, the only reason they won the division after all was because the Saints won 1 fewer game than I predicted they would. I picked them to win 10 games. Instead, the Bucks are. Did the Bucks win 10?
No, I think they finished 9.
Okay, so yeah, there you go. But at least it's a winning record this year. Am I right? Is that the surprise? Maybe. But it's not the biggest surprise in the NFL. How do you not say the Texans? What's wrong with you? Now, granted, is it because you listened to me in August when I said they'd win 7 games? Cool. Then you were actually smart enough to understand somebody who appreciated all the stuff we talked about earlier in the offensive, defensive, rookie of the year portion of the segment. However, seeing them come in and handle business the way they did, that's a good pick too. I'm not going there either. The Cleveland Browns, in my opinion, are the biggest surprise at this point. I had them winning 6 games. I bet hard against the Deshaun Watson experiment. And guess what? Technically, that part I got right. However, they kept winning expletive-deleted games. They lose their top running back, and they kept winning. They brought in a guy off the couch at 38, as we've mentioned on this show earlier, and they kept winning. They've beaten the Baltimore bleeping Ravens and the San Francisco 49ers. Both number 1 seeds. who lost to the Browns. Now, granted, Trent Williams factor, blah, blah, blah. Sure, the receivers couldn't catch the ball worth a damn that day. We can make all the exceptions we want. That's still a thing that happened. So
they also lost to they also beat the 49ers with PJ Walker at quarterback.
Why you got to rub it in like that?
Because PJ Walker threw 2 interceptions, and it's the Trent Williams.
To rub it in like that.
It's because this is the reason why
quarterback already's keeping me from covering another NFL game this year. Dan, you got to go and bring us some trash like that.
Because I wanted to pick Trent Williams again.
I got diss me like that.
Because I wanted to pick Trent Williams again, goddamn.
Fair. Biggest disappointment. Tell me, Mikey Byrne, who was your biggest disappointment and why is it the Chargers?
To quote Arnold Schwarzenegger, go Chargers, go.
More like no Chargers, no.
Yeah. And this is even before the Justin Herbert injury. Brandon Staley, you're getting the big Jim Neese fire Mike McCarthy into the sun vibe here, dog. I don't want to see you around an NFL facility for at least the next year. Never as a head coach ever again. Because at the end of the day, he was not good. I get it. Ernest has said it a million times in his rankings. And guess what? For the first time in the year of 2024, I'm going to say Ernest Christian was right. Brandon Staley did more harm than good to that team.
Moreover, he's not just right. He's been right on that.
Correct. So again, I'm going to do something that I don't do very often. Kudos to Ernest for getting it right. But at the end of the day, this team was still supposed to compete for a playoff spot, was supposed to be able to pick on a down year for the Kansas City Chiefs, not having viable weapons at wide receiver. A lot of people, myself included, believe that Justin Herbert was going to take that step. I do think the Mike Williams injury hurt them because then Quentin Johnson had a not great year as a rookie. I think there's more questions than answers when it comes to what you're getting with him. Austin Eckler, as a fantasy football owner, all I've been told for the last 5 years is how this guy is an absolute game changer. He can run the ball effectively. He can catch the ball effectively. He can make people miss. Well, guess what? I don't think he made many people miss this year.
Yeah.
I had him in a league, and there were times where I was like, can I literally bench a guy who's a upside fantasy football guy who can catch 8 to 10 passes and run it for 100 yards and catch another? Like, is he the great value version of Christian McCaffrey? Can I really wish.com Christian McCaffrey bench him right now? Because I really feel like I couldn't at points. And it ended up costing me games because it's like you're expecting him to at least put up something, and it's like 3.3 fantasy points. And I know we're diatribing to the fantasy football world, which is not your world. But I'm saying
I'm not ignorant. Hold on, let me be clear. I'm not ignorant to fantasy football.
I know it's not your thing, though.
Well, no, I'm fine with it. I just don't have time to play it. Like, listen, I've spent plenty of time. It's not like wrestling where I barely know who CM Punk is, and I just know to wave in front of my face so you can't see me. Listen, I know enough about fantasy to where I've drafted a team for somebody and they didn't touch it again. And the only games they lost was one during the week against the best point getter in the league and the bye week. So, I know Punk.
Yeah, and the thing is there's just pieces that are on that team that make so much sense to be good, and they underperformed on both sides of the football this year.
Mm-hmm.
Brandon Staley did them no favors. But I think there's some questions here that need to be answered. Austin Eckler's a free agent, probably not going to be back in LA. So does that mean that it's Josh Kelly? Are we drafting somebody? If Blake Corum's there, are we drafting Blake Corum in the first round? What do you do if you're the Chargers now to address the situation that is at hand? You still have at least 2 good wide receivers. Quentin Johnson is a questionable third one. You have some decent tight ends. Justin Herbert is going to be back, but you need to address the offensive line because that offensive line was not good this year for him. The front four with Bosa and Khalil Mack on the corners, it's good, but the problem is you're still in a division that's going to have Patrick LaVon Mahomes II in it. They're the measuring stick. I get it. Denver's probably going to be a question mark because Russell Carrington Wilson probably isn't going to be there next year.
That contract is going to make it interesting. We'll leave it at that.
That's a conversation for
Another show
after the Super Bowl when we can actually sit down and talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah.
Timbers made it abundantly clear that
you check the spot rack number on that beast before you make that declaration.
I've looked at Sports Track a couple times at it, and it's just the way I look at it is they're going to try to find a way to move on from it. If they can or not is the conversation we have to have.
Well, if they figure it out, that'll be a separate case study. But anyway, back on track.
Vegas, they're going to address the quarterback position, whether it be in the draft or whether it be a certain man who likes coupons.
I'll just say it this way. I don't see Kirk Cousins making it to Vegas. A guy that relies on coupons is less inclined to gamble in the casino. That's all.
I was going to say, is it because he looks like the wholesome dad who hasn't missed like Sunday service in like 18 years with that haircut and everything, where he's like Kirk Cousins, Michigan State. And
by the way, great self-edit there. I caught that.
Yeah, I tried. I'm Kirk Cousins. I play football. Like he's not going to.
I'm from Delaware, but enough about Joe Flacco. Anyways,
he will. I don't think he'll survive in Las Vegas either. But Cousins does seem to be a name that people are pushing in that direction. Another name potentially, depending on what happens now that Pete Carroll is out in Seattle. What if they move on from Geno Smith? You know, he's an interesting name that could end up in Las Vegas with Davante Adams. Because at the end of the day, I don't think that Las Vegas is going to be able to move Davante Adams as much as people think that they're going to be able to.
I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing because whoever they do bring in will need that guy. I'm just
correct. And that's what I'm saying. They need to address the quarterback position. So the problem that I have here is you have teams that are almost taking a minor step down to fix some problems in Las Vegas and Denver. You have an opportunity here to put yourself in contention. But the problem is you got to address those issues. And the Chargers and the ownership group of the Chargers have proven they're not spending the money to do it.
I mean, I'll give you the short version of everything you've just said to kind of sum it up. The former San Diego has a roster that is way better than what they've turned out. Period, point blank, end of expletive deleted story.
1000%.
So, Coach of the Year, Mikey Byrne. Get it wrong, because if any indication of how you were talking on the Huddle Up podcast, I'm predicting you're going to get this wrong.
It's D'Amico Ryans.
God damn it. Why? Continue.
It's D'Amico Ryans because of what he's done with the rookies. He's found a way.
You picked D'Amico Ryans because of the young guys. You did it all for the rookies? The rookies? The rookies?
I also did it because at the end of the day,
that joke, by the way. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I mean, D'Amico Ryans led them to a divisional title. Let's peel the layer back here, okay? Rookie quarterback. Your running back that you thought was going to be your franchise running back. You didn't even have him on the field the last 3 weeks of the season in Dameon Pierce. You're getting more out of Devin Singletary than he's ever ran for.
I think that's more about the Buffalo Bills coaching and lineup than it is
not disagreeing.
Lions, but continue.
I'm not disagreeing.
Uh-huh.
Nico Collins, Tank Dell, an injured Robert Woods. At the end of the day, CJ Stroud has done this with what feels like a band of misfit toys at the wide receiver position. Dalton Schultz has been really good for them. D'Amico Ryans turned that defense around. And that's where this goes to. Honestly, I have no problem with the guy that you're going to pick, which is Kevin Stefanski. It was the two of them to me. I said this last night on the show. I went back and forth on this until about 15 minutes before we pressed the play button.
And you may still change your mind because I'm going to point out how wrong you are, and the student of the game argument will compel you.
And that's you're probably right, and that's fine. I have no. See, here's the thing. I'm not going to pull the Ernest DJ Christian and die on the sword because I too will overlook things that.
No, this is a must-win argument, Bern.
Yeah, it's about as must win as a week 1 game or Minnesota guaranteeing themselves a playoff spot.
I
But
see what you did
more
there.
on that later. At the end of the day, the reason why I inevitably went with the D'Amico Ryan led Houston Texans, and we'll talk about Stefanski because that's just the only other name that makes sense.
Mhm.
Um, where I give Ryan's the slight edge is he's done it with the injury bug with Case Keenum having to step in and kept them competitive in games. You know, the Cleveland game that they're going to play again on Saturday afternoon. We're going to talk about that. Uh, at the end of the day, that game, Cleveland could have just ran away with that game, but D'Amico Ryans had that defense ready to go. I get it. It doesn't look that way because Amari Cooper caught like 37 passes for 297 million yards and like 4 touchdowns. But if you just take him out of the game, which I know weird when you say that, they did a great job forcing Joe Flacco to throw up some almost throwing it from the hip and just yelling 500 and hoping that his guy comes up with it.
Oh,
Balls.
you mean like he did throughout his career, where all but 1 year he had an ass ton of turnovers as a Raven? Cool. Continue.
So, and that's why I lead towards D'Amico Ryans, because at the end of the day, they were competitive in those games when CJ went down because the defense and a defensive minded coach. And I understand you watched him twice. You watched him twice. There was games with Jacksonville where Trevor Lawrence is dinged up. They didn't have Christian Kirk. I understand. But this team they won the division because of the Jacksonville running into the injury bug is what I'm getting at.
Oh, you're not wrong.
What I'm saying is, though, this team coming out of the NFL draft in April was what, a 5-win team projected on paper?
Mm-hmm.
Cleveland was at least.
I picked them to win 7, by the way. I picked the Texans to win more games than the Browns. So perhaps part of this is the difference in my point of view, but I digress.
And it could be, because what I'm saying is I thought Cleveland coming out of the draft had the better roster, but I thought Houston had the better upside. Because of, and honestly, the Nick Chubb injury kind of puts those two rosters where if Chubb is healthy, I have them up here and I have Houston down here. It kind of brings them into a level playing field. I'm not disagreeing with it, and I know that that's going to be part of your argument. And trust me, I went back and forth on it. That's why I'm telling you. And I said it.
I know you're going to slap me in my silly face, and I'm ready for it.
I said it last night on the show that.
You mean on the Huddle podcast? Bing!
On Huddle Up Inc. Yes. I said this was the award that I was going to go back and forth on the most.
Yeah.
Because the other ones just felt like a lot of them made sense.
Right.
This was the one.
I think we're sleeping on that. Let's just walk through guys in my mind who should at least get consideration for candidacy. For one, other than shooting himself in the foot in the preseason and causing scandal, there was a time where we were talking about Sean Payton being this guy. There were times where Shane Steichen in Indy. Talk about teams who outperformed. I think the biggest whiff I had in a positive direction, in other words, the biggest underestimation I had was the Colts. And the only reason why Shane Steichen isn't going to get it is because they didn't win in week 18. Had they done so, I really don't know what I was going to do. That's a whole crazy thing.
Mm-hmm.
For a while there, Robert Saleh, we're losing your quarterback 4 snaps into the goddamn season. You were still alive and well. Now, eventually he fell off, but Robert Saleh doing what he did, finding a way to beat your Texans with Zach Wilson throwing for 300 yards blows my mind. Granted, CJ Stroud's concussion was part of it, but the dude definitely deserves some dap. And two guys we are talking well enough about also, Zach Taylor making a hero out of Jake Browning is absolutely amazing. Mike Tomlin, in a stat that's allegedly meaningless, winning another season with Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer at quarterback in Mason Rudolph, with Mitchell Trubisky having to play games and Kenny Pickett struggling. Granted, I still think With that, I'm going to personally blame Canada, just like I was a South Park person. But you got to think about him with consideration. Then, oh, by the way, why is no one talking about John Harbaugh? I digress on that. We've already talked about how that team's turned it around on the strength of changing their OC and has done things with plenty of players getting hurt inside and outside of the hashes all over their defense and offense. Absolutely crazy stuff. The list is stupid long. But for the sake of some brevity, because we've been at this for a minute, the one thing in all the points you made that you think I'm going to come at you with here with Stefanski, you've not mentioned the most obvious one. And as a Bengals fan, I'm a little disappointed. It's adorable. Absolutely just pucker up, kiss worthy that you talk about the Texans. The Browns have more wins in the hardest division in the NFL. And you want to hand it to DeMeco Ryans because he won a division. Upon which Trevor Lawrence and company choked. We'll call that what it is. You exploded the Titans' run game at Everbank, and then those defensive tackles got handled in a way I've never seen before. I would make a joke about what website somebody might see the way they got handled, but that's a separate conversation, Mikey Byrne. The punchline's this. The Browns have more wins and a tougher division and beat the two top seed teams. And the only reason they're not a division winner is because they're in the same division as the Baltimore Ravens, period, point blank, end of story. If your boy Jake Browning holds on and they get one more win, there's an opportunity for this to be a division where everybody has double-digit wins. Oh, well, DeMeco Ryans won the division. Well, hey, while we're on the topic, right, to Todd Bowles, he won the division in the South. Are we talking about him? He did better with Baker Mayfield. Let's give it to him, right? He won the NFC South. That's a great one. Come on, guys. What are we doing here? We can make the argument that FSU doesn't belong in the national championship in the CFP and know it's smart and then turn around and hand this to Ryans. To me, that's just as stupid. And again, Ryans did an awesome job. This is what sucks about comparing two very, very talented, awesome accomplishments is because I got to crap all over Ryans, who did a great job. Hell, I was bought into Ryans in the preseason late August. I picked 7 wins and I'm now saying, why didn't you have them doing better? I was an optimist. I was mocked by Titan fans for saying they would have the same number of wins at 7. I know I've mentioned that a lot, but I like to rub it in a little bit. Shouts to Cortland Griffin of the 3-point conversion, resident Titans homer. But I don't see how the coach that got more wins with more struggle, I would argue, because you mentioned the lack of player and certain injuries. Hey, how about this? How about having an owner so dumb that they make what will probably go down in history as the worst quarterback deal in history? Being stuck with that player continuing to suck, as students of the game warned you, and still being prolific. Who's the best receiver they have? Amari Cooper? Well, the correct answer is probably David Njoku, but an aging Amari Cooper, and I'm supposed to feel bad about your quarterback because he got taken down in comparison. Cool story, bro. I mean, no. I think to me, considering the surrounding material, we got the division award. I just, I know Jim. Yeah, Jim, I'm firing shots at you, right? Sorry. I'm firing good shots. Anybody, oh, yeah, it's definitely DeMeco Ryans is not close. You didn't say that, Byrne. You said you're not sure and you're still flip-flopping. Who knows? Maybe my tirade at the moment will have you in 15 minutes. Oh, my God, what have I done? I gave FSU credibility. No.
You definitely didn't give FSU credibility. For sure.
But, yeah, the mainstream point is this. Technically speaking, with that record, and they have similar schedules because the AFC South and AFC North played each other. By the way, what's the record for the Texans in the AFC North? Because I know the Jags were 1 for 3 beating the Steelers. I won't say barely beating, they beat them by 10.
Houston went 2-2.
Houston, yeah. Okay.
They defeated Cincinnati. They defeated Pittsburgh. Lost 25-9 to Baltimore week 1.
Oh, you mean they didn't beat the Ravens? Cool.
And then lost to Cleveland 36-22 without CJ Stroud.
And I mean, I'm not going to do the one-on-one argument, though I very well could, but I mean,
correct. Absolutely. And here's the thing. Both of these teams have games on their schedules that you look at and you go, they beat teams that they probably shouldn't have. And then they both have games on their schedule where you're like, if this team that was playing the last 4 weeks played teams that they played earlier in the season and lost, they would probably win.
mm-hmm.
Perfect example. Cleveland with DTR taking on Denver.
Yeah.
Losing the game and then losing the next week to the Rams. You know, I think if
at least the Browns didn't lose to the Jets.
Correct. And here's the thing. Looked like shit against the Jets.
And still won by 17.
You know? But it's one of those things. Houston found a way to escape Tampa Bay. You know, they found a way to escape, New Orleans, but they lost on the road at Pittsburgh. They lost on the road in Atlanta. Both of these teams have games that you look back at and you're like, man, give me that game back. And you feel a lot better about it. But the thing is, I personally think that the Coach of the Year award is D'Amico Ryans versus Kevin Stefanski. I have no problem with either one of them winning it.
Mm-hmm.
As long as lamestream media doesn't find a way to give it to someone that really shouldn't get it, I'm okay with either one of these guys winning it because I feel like they've done the best job.
I think we're safe. Brian Daboll isn't a candidate this year.
He wasn't a candidate last year either.
Oh!
His defensive coordinator feels the same way. I'm sorry, ex-defensive coordinator feels the same way.
Ooh, I'm going to wink at that one. Anyways, I hope somebody got that other than you. Anyways, by the way, Wink Martindale, the name of my favorite game show host. I think that's worth mentioning too. Anyways, I think that'll. I've obviously see. I bookended this conversation of superlatives by just completely thrashing you in arguments. So I think that's a good segment.
I do enjoy that. I'm reading the first reports of the Pete Carroll situation.
Listen. We're already almost an hour and a half in. Let's not get into that right now. That needs to be its own episode, my guy.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it now. I opened up ESPN to look at the schedules, and I saw the first blip, and I clicked it, and the first line, which we could talk about off air.
Yeah,
you'll look at me and you'll go, "Huh?
What just happened?"
Yeah.
Anyways, all right. Well, the playoffs have come. It's time to do some picks. You want to do some picks, Mikey Byrne?
Let's ride.
Let's do some picks. Okay, well, these are all playoff games, so it should be somewhat riveting. A lot of these are tough to pick. Some of them aren't. And listen, it's the battle of the coaches of the year. There can only be one. It's the playoffs. Saturday, opening the action for the playoffs for the wild card round, the Browns travel to Houston to battle the Texans. Mikey Byrne, who you got?
Defense wins championships. Cleveland.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate that you're appreciating the most underrated defense in the NFL by far. And this is a tough one. For me, you say that. I also say quarterbacks win champions too. I got CJ Stroud in this one in a twist of absolute irony that we pick against one another's candidates. What I think is the easiest game to pick on the weekend, the Dolphins head to Arrowhead in what looks to be 0-degree weather to face the Kansas City Chiefs. Who you got, Mikey Byrne?
Second easiest game of the week for me.
Ooh,
we'll talk about the first one here in a minute.
You're probably right, but continue.
Give me old Patrick LeVon Mahomes II in Arrowhead in freezing cold weather.
Patrick LeVon Mahomes II, Travis Michael Kelce, whoever it is, I see another Chiefs victory. By the way, Should I submit Andy Reid for a middle name candidate? That's interesting. Anyways, I too have the Chiefs. Sunday action starting at 1 o'clock. The Steelers head to the former Ralph Wilson Stadium to battle the Buffalo Bills. Mike, who you got?
I found the easiest game of the week.
Yeah, I too will circle the wagons. I also have the Buffalo Bills, though the argument can be made the unpredictability of the Bills doesn't make this game so easy to pick. Anyways, that
Rudolph,
TJ Watt's out. I get it.
Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer.
Let's see how shiny his nose is. I know the fans' noses will be pretty shiny after they fall through a table. The Packers head to Dallas and Jerry World to battle the Cowboys. Who you got, Mikey Byrne?
This one's intriguing. This one is one where on paper you would say that Dallas should probably win this game convincingly. Mm-hmm. I'm going to pull the Lee Corso route and go, not so fast, my friend. The Green Bay Packers offense is clicking for the first time this year at the end of the year. Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon both look like they're healthy running the football. Hopefully, for Green Bay's sake, that Christian Watson plays in this game and can give them a spark still at the wide receiver position. I believe that the Vegas betting line is disrespectful, which I saw was 7.5. I don't think this is a 7.5 point game.
Yeah, I do think points. That's the bet.
Exactly. I think Dallas wins this football game, but if you're giving me a touchdown with the way that Jordan Love has looked the last couple weeks, I think Dallas escapes, and I think that's the word you have to use is escape. But I don't think that this is a blowout.
There's a lot of good there, and you citing the success, or rather the health and opportunity to run the football against the Cowboys makes a compelling argument. That being said, find me a way the Packers stop CeeDee Lamb and company. And by the way, have they done any of it against Micah Parsons? I don't see any of that going. I've said at times I'm not sure how much I trust Matt LaFleur, but then again, I don't know how much I trust Mike McCarthy either. So the coaching aspect's a little off. I've said many times I don't love Jordan as a quarterback prospect, but I don't mean to rain on Dakota's parade either. I just don't know what you're going to get here in this situation. It's all a mental game. Dak's been playing incredibly well, though, of late. I think Big Jim gets over his PTSD and sees the Packers lose on the road. I guess we don't agree on that one. Yeah, I have the Cowboys.
No, I took Dallas. I just think it's going to be closer.
Got you. Oh, hey, fine analysis too, just like mine. Anyways, the Rams head to the Motor City to battle Man Campbell, the team where Mikey shocked the world in week 1 by picking them to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. That's crazy. Anyways, Mikey Byrne, who you got?
Matt Stafford returns home.
Mm-hmm.
Jared Goff plays his ex-coach. It's like the NFL opened up Vince McMahon's storytelling book and was like,
it's all scripted, you know.
How can we get ratings on a Sunday night in January? The reality of the situation.
What the Goff is cooking.
Here's the thing that I look at. The Rams do have the pedigree of being here before. Obviously, the run to the Super Bowl and defeating the Cincinnati Bengals, which still hurts me more than you can think about. And here's the thing. Yes, Aaron Donald. Yes, the defense is good for the Rams.
And that would be Aaron Charles Donald, sir.
Correct. But there's a lot of people that are writing off a certain man who may make Matt Stafford's life a little bit tumultuous and turmoil in the Motor City, and that is Aiden Hutchinson. I'm going to take the Lions to win. I don't know what the line is in this game. Obviously, we're just picking a winner. Detroit gets their first playoff win since the 90s and set up a date for the game that they want more than anything in the world. And Jim said this on the show last night, and it's after I hopped off the air. I listened to it on the way home. He picked the Rams because Detroit isn't over what happened with the eligible receiver debacle in Dallas. I think they know that if they're not over it, they have a shot to make up for it the following week by going back to Dallas and playing that same team that they put on the ropes. Man Campbell isn't going to overlook the Los Angeles Rams. Give me Man Campbell. Give me the Lions. Give me the rematch of one of the best games of the 2023 season. Give me the Lions.
No, I'm not dissing that. Listen, maybe I'm making the same mistake here I made with the national championship. All the reasons you mentioned about Madden, Campbell, and company are incredibly dangerous. However, at the end of the day, somehow or another, the Rams, for no good reason than any other, have managed to somehow protect John Matthew Stafford later. Not that I'm saying his middle name, that just many people don't know his first name's John. But with Stafford, he's doing things. Once again, I'm in a position to where I'm forced to scoff at Goff, where you're telling me I live in a world where a guy that threw for 5,000 yards without Calvin Johnson now has Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. You're out of your damn mind. I just can't do it. Man, Campbell, bite my kneecaps off. I'll take it like a man. I have the Rams in this one here, pulling the upset. And I know why you're thinking that's crazy. EJ predicted it, so obviously he's already jinxed the Rams, so I already have an out.
Honestly, I think the biggest concern for Detroit, Sam Laporta being out.
That's a great point by you. And they have a major defensive guy out, too. I forget who that is.
I know that they've announced that Laporta is not playing.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
It's a huge one. Looking at just real quick, I'm looking to see if there's any other injury reports for the Lions. Jamison Williams is questionable. Sam Laporta. James Houston, the linebacker.
That's who I'm talking about.
Had an ankle injury. Looks like they've put him on injured reserve. Yeah, they're saying that Laporta was questionable today with the knee. I don't think he plays in that game.
And if he does, he's still limited.
So, and that's the thing. It just means that the secondary is gonna probably hone in on Amon-Ra St. Brown. So that means the Lions are gonna have to look more for the David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs ground game rather than the 4,600 passing yards of Jared Goff.
I scoff at Goff. What can I say? With all that in mind, let's wrap up the picks here with the two teams that would probably be seen to be the easiest to eliminate at this point in the NFC. The Eagles traveling to Raymond James to hey, Tampa Bay. Who you got, Mikey Byrne?
How is this the Monday night game?
Why don't they put this one on Peacock? Just saying.
So bad. I would rather have Cleveland versus Houston as the Monday night game, personally.
I mean, listen, we've been over that, but who you got here in this Monday night game?
Baker Mayfield.
You're picking Baker Mayfield. It's more than I'm picking against an Eagles team that I have precisely no confidence in at this point. I can guarantee you, unless they end up playing, I don't know. You know what? I'm pretty sure for the rest of the year that as long as the Eagles are still alive, I'm going to be picking against them. I have no reason to have any faith in that team, as much as I've caped up for the O-line and Jason Kelsey, as much as I've said, even since he got drafted, that Jalen Hurts is not as bad as everybody says he is, and all of the above. This team has just been looking awful, and I'll tell you this, another campaign for Shane Steichen as coach of the year, seeing how bad this Eagles defense has become without him present. I have also the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I felt weird. Anyways, with all that, what's that?
You need to go take a shower now or something? You just feel weird?
Not dirty, just weird. Like I felt a disturbance in the force. So, Mikey Byrne, tell the world where you can be found.
You can follow me on Twitter at They Call Me Byrne. You can listen to me. We're done for this season with the FKC Fantasy Hour. We'll be back.
Hey, listen, anywhere where Craig's not on a mic. Oh, no, I'm kidding.
Bang, bang, shots fired. As we get closer to the All-Star game, the Five for Fighting podcast will be making its return here on the Huddle Up Incorporated, or over on the Huddle Up Incorporated feed. You can see me in the comment section of Huddle Up Proper every Tuesday night, where I dunk on Ernest from afar.
Point shot, like yeah.
No. See, here's the thing. I normally hit the running floater, and Ernest is like, "Oh, I'm gonna try to swat it." You just come over the top, and you're like, "Nope." I hit the alley-oop. We hit the alley-oop on him. So it is what it is.
I like the basketball analogies where I came in from an NBA game to dunk on him. That's beautiful.
Exactly. We
check that on the Huddle podcast. Bing!
Yeah. Again, you can listen to me do the Bengal report here with Kyle at the beginning of the year. We'll do our middle of the road awards, and then we'll wrap it up again with this fun thing. As always, I appreciate you letting me come on here for a bit and ramble on about a whole bunch of stuff.
A bit? You're 95 minutes in. What you mean a bit? Hey, listen, I have you here despite the fact you're a heartless guy who picked against a guy who literally came back to life for Comeback Player of the Year. Man, listen, I'm glad I know your wife personally, and I know why she would forgive you. I'll leave it at that. Anyways, shouts to one of the kindest souls I know, and I'm not just saying that for the show. Of course, I am Kyle Nash, the student of the game. You can find me on Twitter at the SofTG. Find me on Instagram and Threads as the same, the SofTG. Find me on Facebook as the student of the game. Check out my writings with Jaguar Report, top 5 best and worst moments of the 2023 season out there now. As part of the Sports Illustrated Fan Nation, the Jaguar Report. Check that out. 3-point conversion. Check out my video from last night. Chris Finch of the Minnesota Timberwolves. Check out that post game after the mollywhopping he and his Timberwolves put on the Orlando Magic. Good gravy. Also check out the Black and Gold Banneret. Lots of quality basketball stuff there too. And of course, the Night Shift podcast I participate in as part of the Black and Gold Banneret. So check that out as well. Coverage of the Magic with A7B in Sports. And of course, Friday morning, 11 a.m., the final Duval Dive podcast of the year with my guy, Travis Holmes of Big Cat Country. Good times all the way around, man. An excellent show, an excellent regular season. Mikey Byrne, an honor, joy, and privilege to have you aboard. And of course, until next time, everyone, class dismissed.